Commander Krathnor challenged the human security chief to prove her strength, but 30 seconds later he couldn't feel the left side of his body. Krathnor stood at the observation deck of Station Meridian, all four arms crossed in what his species considered the ultimate display of skepticism. His crimson scales caught the light from the nearby star, making him look like some kind of walking, talking ember, and honestly, he felt just as hot-headed. "They are sending humans," his second-in-command Valk announced from behind him. The younger Vexillian's voice carried that unmistakable tone of amusement, the kind you use when someone tells you they are bringing a pet to a war council. "Humans." Krathnor let the word roll off his forked tongue like it tasted bad, which in his opinion it did. The galaxy's most overrated species. He had heard the stories, of course. Everyone had. Humans this, humans that. Humans somehow survived their death world and now they think they are tough. Please. Krathnor had fought in 17 campaigns across 9 star systems. He wore the Crimson Mark of Valor, the highest military honor his people could bestow. He had personally defeated a Kromath berserker in single combat, and those things were 3 times his size and made of what could only be described as angry muscle and bad attitude. And yet somehow these soft-skinned, short-lived mammals had the entire Galactic Council tripping over themselves to accommodate them. "The diplomatic vessel is docking now," Velk informed him, pulling up the station feed on his wrist display. "Standard human crew. 20 individuals. Security detail included." "Security detail," Krathnor snorted, which, coming from a species with 4 nostrils, sounded particularly dramatic. "What are they securing?" "Their lunchboxes." Velk chuckled, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Commander, you really should read the briefings." "I read them," Krathnor lied. He had skimmed them. Maybe. The parts that were not boring anyway. Humans are fragile. Their bones break easily. They need constant temperature regulation or they die. They require sleep every single day, sometimes for a third of their entire cycle. They are biological disasters held together by what? Audacity and caffeine. "The reports do mention the caffeine thing quite a bit," Velk admitted. Krathnor turned from the viewport, his tail swishing behind him in agitation. Among his people, the Vexillians, strength was everything. Not just physical strength, though that mattered plenty, but strength of will, strength of honor, strength of purpose. Warriors were the backbone of their society. The ones who made the hard decisions, who protected the weak, who faced down the darkness between stars without flinching. Humans, from everything he had read, glossed over and heard secondhand, were none of those things. They were newcomers to the galactic stage, arriving only 70 years ago with their primitive fusion drives and their embarrassingly young civilization. They had no warrior caste, no formal combat training from birth, no centuries-old martial traditions. They had what? Movies, television. Something called football that was apparently not even played with feet most of the time. It was insulting, really. The council treating them like equals. "I want to meet this security chief," Krathnor announced, suddenly making a decision that would in retrospect rank among his top 5 worst ideas ever. Right up there with challenging that plasma eel to a staring contest and eating that thing on Rigel 7 that was still moving. "Commander," Valk's head tilted, concerned. "You heard me. When they disembark, I want to meet their head of security. Face to face. I want to see what passes for a warrior among these creatures." Velk hesitated, his claws tapping against his datapad in that nervous way he had. "Sir, the diplomatic protocols specifically request that we maintain professional courtesy and avoid any, and I am quoting here, dominance displays or physical posturing." "I am not posturing," Krathnor said, posturing aggressively. "I am simply curious about our guests." "Is curiosity against protocol now? When you get curious, things tend to catch fire. That was one time, and that ambassador had it coming." The docking clamps engaged with a heavy thud that resonated through the station's superstructure. Krathnor felt it in his bones, that satisfying metallic sound of connection. The human vessel, he had to admit, was not bad-looking. Sleek design, efficient lines, none of the overcomplicated nonsense that some species slapped onto their ships. But looking good and being good were 2 very different things. "They are opening the airlock," Velk reported. Krathnor straightened to his full height, which was impressive by anyone's standards. 2.5 meters of scaled muscle, combat training and poorly concealed arrogance. He flexed all 4 arms in sequence, a warm-up routine that had intimidated countless opponents. "Let us go welcome our guests," he said, his voice dripping with the kind of sarcasm that probably should have been a warning sign to everyone involved. It was not. The human security chief was not what Crathnor expected. Which, given that he had spent the walk to the docking bay imagining some trembling oversized child in an ill-fitting uniform, was probably for the best. Jen Park stood about 1.7 meters tall, which by human standards was apparently average, and by Vexillian standards was adorably tiny. She had dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard blue and gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic security service. No visible weapons unless you counted the datapad magnetically attached to her belt. She looked, and Crathnor could not stress this enough, completely and utterly unbothered by everything around her. Commander Crathnor, the human ambassador was saying, a tall male named Richard Chen, who had the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking hands. Thank you for hosting us on Station Meridian. This is Officer Jen Park, head of our security detail. Jen nodded once. Just once. Like she was acknowledging a weather report, not meeting one of the most decorated warriors in this sector. Crathnor felt his scales ripple with annoyance. Officer Park, he said, intentionally using the title like it was something he found on the bottom of his boot. I trust your journey was not too taxing for your, delicate constitution. Nope, Jen said. Pop the pay at the end. Like she was talking about lunch options. It was fine. Fine. Crathnor repeated the word like he was tasting it. Still bad. How nice. You know, Officer Park, on my world security chiefs are warriors. True warriors. Tested in combat from the age of 5 cycles. We earn our positions through strength, skill and blood. Cool, Jen said, which was apparently human for, I am listening but do not actually care even a little bit. The ambassador coughed. Commander, perhaps we could proceed to the conference room and— I am curious, Crathnor interrupted, taking a step closer to Jen. She did not step back. Points for that, he supposed. Stupid points. But points. How does one become a security chief among humans? Is there a test, or do you simply volunteer and hope nobody notices? Velk made a small distressed sound behind him, the kind of sound that translated roughly to please stop talking. Oh ancestors, please stop. Jen looked up at Crathnor with eyes that were dark brown and carried about as much concern as a rock. There is a test actually. Physical fitness, combat training, tactical assessment, psychological evaluation. Pretty standard stuff. Combat training, Crathnor laughed, and it was not a nice laugh. It was the laugh of someone about to make a terrible decision and absolutely commit to it. Officer Park, I have trained in 17 different martial disciplines. I have fought beings twice my size and 3 times my ferocity. I have quite literally crushed enemies beneath my feet. Neat, Jen said. That did it. That single word, delivered with such profound disinterest, shattered what little restraint Crathnor had left. I challenge you, he declared, loud enough that every species within 20 meters turned to look. Formal combat, single engagement, first to yield or fall, right here, right now. The docking bay went very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when everyone simultaneously realizes they are about to witness either something amazing or something horrible, and possibly both. Ambassador Chen opened his mouth, probably to say something diplomatic and calming, but Jen held up one hand stopping him. Sure, she said. Just like that. Sure, like he had asked if she wanted coffee. Give me a second to stretch. And then, right there in the docking bay, this tiny human woman bent forward and touched her toes. Just casual stretching. The kind you do before a light jog, not before facing a decorated Vexillian warrior in combat. This is going to be over in seconds, someone in the growing crowd muttered. It was a Thexian merchant, 3-eyed and eager for gossip. Poor human does not know what she got herself into, added a Frillian trader, her tentacles quivering with anticipation. Valk moved closer to Crathnor. Commander, this is a mistake. Nonsense, Crathnor said, already moving toward the station's designated combat arena, a reinforced space used for settling disputes the old-fashioned way, because apparently, that was a universal constant. Every space station in the galaxy had that one room where people could legally beat each other up. This will be educational for everyone involved. The crowd followed, growing with each intersection they passed. Word spread fast on a space station. Within minutes it seemed like half the station's population had found reasons to suddenly be very interested in the arena level. The arena itself was a circular space, 15 meters in diameter, with impact-absorbing floors and energy barriers to protect the spectators. The lights automatically brightened as they entered, sensors detecting imminent violence the way smoke detectors sense fire. Crathnor stepped into the center, cracked all 4 sets of knuckles in sequence and felt that familiar pre-combat focus settle over him like a second skin. This was what he was built for. This was what 70 years of training had prepared him for. Jen stepped in across from him, rolled her shoulders once, twice, and then just stood there, waiting, relaxed, like she was in line at a grocery store, not facing down a warrior who outweighed her by at least 80 kilograms. "Begin when ready," the station's AI announced in that bored, seen-it-all voice that all station AIs seem to develop after a few decades. Crathnor smiled, showing all his teeth. "Any last words, Officer Park?" Jen tilted her head slightly. "You sure about this?" Oh, he was sure. He was absolutely, completely, catastrophically sure. Crathnor launched himself forward with the kind of speed that had earned him 3 medals and a reputation for ending fights before they started. His primary right arm swung in a devastating arc, aimed at where Jen's center mass had been approximately half a second ago. Emphasis on had been. The human was not there anymore. She had simply, and this was the part that started to bother him immediately, stepped to the side. Not dramatically, not with some fancy flourish or combat roll. She just moved, like someone avoiding a puddle on the sidewalk. "Huh," someone in the crowd said. Crathnor spun, his tail whipping around to compensate for his momentum, and threw a combination strike with his secondary arms. Left, right, left again, each blow capable of denting steel plating, each one hitting absolutely nothing but air. Jen ducked under the first, leaned away from the second, and the third passed so close to her face that it should have at least made her blink. It did not. She just watched it go by, like watching a bus pass. "Okay," Crathnor said, breathing slightly heavier than he wanted to admit. "You are quick. Good. This will not be completely boring." Jen did not respond. She just maintained that same relaxed stance, weight slightly forward, hands loose at her sides, waiting. Fine. If speed was not working, strength would. Crathnor was a warrior of the Vaxillian Empire. He had crushed rock with his bare hands. He had torn durasteel doors from their hinges. He had once, and he was still proud of this, punched a malfunctioning combat drone so hard it had achieved a new orbit. He charged again, all 4 arms extended, intending to grapple and simply overpower her. This was basic tactics. Bigger fighter closes distance, uses mass advantage, ends the fight. Simple, effective, foolproof. Jen stepped into his charge. That was his first clue that something was deeply, fundamentally wrong with this situation. She did not step back or dodge to the side. She stepped forward, inside his reach, and suddenly Crathnor felt something hook behind his leading leg while something else pushed against his chest. Not hard, not with any dramatic force, just a push. Physics did the rest. His world rotated 90 degrees in a way it absolutely should not have. The impact-absorbing floor rushed up to meet his back with a solid thud that knocked the wind from his lungs and the confidence from his ego. He lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. His brain offered several suggestions: sneak attack, trick floor, station malfunction, divine intervention. None of them made sense, because he had seen exactly what happened. He just could not accept it. Jen appeared in his field of vision, looking down at him with an expression of mild concern. The kind of concern you might have for someone who tripped on a rug. "Should I call someone?" she asked. The crowd had gone absolutely silent, the kind of silence usually reserved for funerals or moments of profound shock. Someone dropped something metal. It rang out like a bell in a cathedral. Crathnor's pride, which was substantial and had its own gravitational field, reasserted itself. "I slipped," he announced, rolling to his feet with as much dignity as he could salvage, which was not much, but he was trying. "The floor is slippery." "Uh-huh," Jen said. That universal sound of polite disbelief. Again, Crathnor demanded. "This time I will be ready." Jen shrugged. "Your funeral." He came at her with everything. Every technique, every dirty trick, every combat skill he had accumulated over 70 years of dedicated training. He feinted with his upper arms and struck with his lower ones. He used his tail like a fifth limb, sweeping at her legs. He varied his rhythm, changed his angles, attempted grapples and strikes in combinations that should have overwhelmed any opponent. Jen Park, all 1.7 meters of her, moved through his attacks like water. No, not like water. Water was passive. She was selective. She moved exactly as much as she needed to, not a centimeter more. Every dodge was minimal. Every deflection was precise. She was not fighting him so much as she was declining his invitations to hit her. And then, when he overextended on a particularly aggressive lunge, she did something that would haunt his nightmares for weeks. She poked him. Just extended one finger and poked him in the shoulder. Right on a pressure point he did not even know he had. His entire left side went numb. Both left arms dropped like someone had cut the strings. His leg buckled. And for the second time in 5 minutes Krothnor found himself on the floor, this time in a much less dignified heap. Okay, that was me, and Jen admitted, actually sounding a little apologetic. Sorry. Reflex. Krothnor tried to stand. His left arms were not responding to commands, neither was his left leg. He managed to prop himself up on his right side, looking like the galaxy's most pathetic tripod. What? What did you do? He managed to gasp. Nerve strike. Jen said. Like that explained anything. You have a cluster right there. Most species do. It will wear off in a minute, maybe two. Nerve strike, Krothnor repeated. You defeated me with a poke. To be fair, it was a very specific poke. The crowd was no longer silent. They were murmuring, chattering, and in some cases making sounds that might have been laughter. Krothnor, prone on the arena floor with half his body on temporary vacation, felt his pride crumble into dust, and then that dust get stepped on. I yield, he said quietly.
What was that?
The station AI asked, because of course it needed clarification at this specific moment. I yield, Krothnor shouted, or tried to. It came out more like a defeated groan. Match concluded. Victor, Officer Jen Park of Earth. Jen extended a hand to help him up. Krothnor stared at it like it might be another attack. Eventually his right arms reached up and accepted the assistance. She pulled him to his feet with surprising strength, steadying him as sensation slowly, painfully started returning to his left side. You good? She asked. I know, Krothnor admitted. No, I am very much not good. Yeah, Jen said, with what might have been sympathy. It happens. The crowd began to disperse, conversations already turning to wild speculation and exaggeration. By dinner time, the story would be about how the human had defeated him with a single glance. By tomorrow, legends would be born. Krothnor stood in the center of the arena, feeling smaller than he ever had in his entire life, and realized with growing horror that he had just learned a very important lesson. He had absolutely no idea what humans were actually capable of, and based on Jen Park's casual demeanor, neither did anyone else. Should I call someone? Jen asked again, this time with what might have been actual concern. You look kind of pale. Can Vaxillians look pale? My pride, Krothnor said weakly. Call the morgue. I think it just died. The medical team arrived approximately 30 seconds after Krothnор's pride had finished its death rattle. 2 Plexian medics, all tentacles and concerned chittering, rushed into the arena with scanners and concerned expressions. Commander Krothnor, please remain still while we assess your injuries, the lead medic said, waving a scanner over his still tingling left side. I am fine, Krothnor growled, which was the universal declaration of people who were absolutely not fine but refused to admit it. I do not need medical attention. Your nervous system shows significant disruption in the left quadrant, the medic insisted, their tentacles typing rapidly on a datapad. We should transport you to the medical bay for observation. No. Krothnor pulled away from the scanner with whatever dignity he could scrape together from the bottom of the barrel. I am fine. It is already passing. See? He flexed his left arms, which cooperated just enough to not make him a complete liar. Perfectly functional. The medic looked skeptical, which was impressive, given that Plexians did not technically have faces. If you experience any numbness, tingling, or loss of motor control, I will come immediately to the medical bay, Krothnor lied through his teeth. You have my word as a warrior. The medics exchanged glances that clearly said they had heard that particular lie before, but eventually packed up their equipment and left, probably to go write a report about stubborn Vaxillians and their allergic reactions to medical care. Velk approached cautiously, like someone approaching a wounded and particularly irritable predator. Commander, that was. Do not say it, Krothnor warned. Enlightening. I said do not say it. Jen had moved to the side of the arena and was drinking something from a container that read water purified Earth Standard in 5 languages. She looked like she had just finished a light warm-up, not defeated a decorated warrior in single combat. Krothnor limped over to her, his pride demanding answers even if his body wanted nothing more than to find a dark room and contemplate his life choices. How? He said simply. Jen looked up from her water. How what? How did you? You are half my size. You have 2 arms. 2. I have 4. 4 arms, Officer Park. Basic mathematics says I should have won. Math is not really great at fighting, Jen said. Also, I have been training since I was 6. Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, boxing and about 4 other systems whose names you could not pronounce, plus the standard diplomatic security combat program which is, let us just say, thorough. Training, Krathnor repeated. I have trained my entire life. Sure, but here is the thing. Jen took another sip of water. You trained on a planet with what, 0.7 standard gravity? 0.68, Krathnor corrected automatically. Right, Earth is 1.0 standard gravity. I have been working out against stronger resistance my entire life. Every step I take I am basically doing strength training compared to you. Plus, our bone density is higher, our muscle attachment points are more efficient, and we evolved from persistence hunters. We are built to keep going when everything else quits. Krathnor felt something in his worldview crack. But the briefing said humans were fragile. We are, Jen agreed. We die easy. Temperature extremes kill us. We need oxygen constantly. We are vulnerable to like 1,000 different diseases. But fragile and weak are not the same thing. We are fragile like I do not know. A really tough piece of glass. Hard to break in the right direction. But yeah, we have weaknesses. This is insane, Krathnor muttered. You want to hear insane? A voice called from the dispersing crowd. A Thexian merchant, the same one who had predicted Jen's quick defeat, approached with all 3 eyes wide. I once saw a human fall down a full flight of stairs, hit every single step and then get up and apologize to the stairs. Like the stairs had feelings. Oh, a Furlian trader added, tentacles waving excitedly. I sold goods on Earth once. Their planet tried to kill me 17 different ways. The air was too thick. The gravity was crushing. Something called pollen tried to suffocate me, and the humans. They were just walking around like it was pleasant. I employed a human cargo handler once, Velk admitted quietly. He loaded containers that normally required 3 of us, by himself, while humming. I thought he was using a mechanical assist. He was not. He was just that strong. More aliens gathered, apparently eager to share their own human-related trauma. They eat poison for fun, someone said. I saw one run 20 kilometers because they were bored. One of them told me they climb mountains during their vacation time. Mountains. For recreation. They have a sport where they punch each other in the face repeatedly and people pay to watch. Krathnor listened to this growing list of human absurdities with the expression of someone watching their entire understanding of the universe collapse in real time. Your planet, he said slowly, turning back to Jen. Your planet made you this way. Pretty much, Jen agreed. Earth is kind of a nightmare world by galactic standards. We have weather that can kill you, animals that want to kill you, plants that can kill you, and geography that is actively trying to kill you. We got tough, because we had to. Natural selection is not gentle. And you just live there, happily. Well, we complain about it a lot, Jen admitted. But yeah, it is home. Krathnor sat down, right there on the arena floor, all 4 arms hanging limply. I need to drink everything. Take your time, Jen said, not unkindly. It is a lot to process. Most species go through this eventually. You are actually taking it pretty well. Last guy challenged me to a rematch immediately. Lost again and then tried to challenge me to a 3rd match while still unconscious. It was awkward. There was a guy before me. Commander, there is always a guy before you. Somewhere in the back of Krathonor's mind his pride tried to rally one last time, suggesting that maybe, possibly, this was all a fluke and he could win a rematch. The rest of his brain, the parts that had just experienced being poked into submission, told his pride to sit down and be quiet. For once his pride listened. 3 days later, Krathnor found himself doing something he never thought he would do. He was hiding, not from an enemy, not from danger, but from his own embarrassment, which had proven far more persistent than any physical opponent. The station's gymnasium was on level 7, a facility designed to accommodate multiple species and their various fitness requirements. Krathnor had been walking past, minding his own business and definitely not brooding, when he heard something that made him stop. Laughter. Human laughter. His curiosity, which had already gotten him into enough trouble for one lifetime, dragged him to the observation window. What he saw made him question reality all over again. There were 5 humans in the gym. Jen was there, along with 4 members of her security team. They were doing something the display screen labeled as circuit training, which sounded innocent enough until you watched what it actually involved. One human, a broad-shouldered male named Torres, according to his uniform, was lifting weights that Crathnor recognized as the heavy-grade equipment, the kind designed for Chromath and other high-density species. Torres was doing repetitions, multiple repetitions, while carrying on a conversation about something called taco recipes. No, you have got to try the fish tacos, he was saying, not even breathing hard. The mango salsa makes all the difference. A smaller female, Chen, was running on a treadmill set to a speed that would have qualified as sprinting for most species. She had been running for, Crathnor checked the display timer, 47 minutes, 47 minutes, without stopping, while reading something on a datapad. I am just saying, Chen called over to Torres between breaths. Mango is overrated. Pineapple salsa is where it is at. Pineapple is a pizza crime. Another human, Rodriguez, said from where he was doing something called pull-ups. He hung from a bar and lifted his entire body weight up and down, over and over, like gravity was a suggestion he was choosing to ignore. We have been over the... Jen was in the corner working through a series of movements that looked like combat forms. Precise, controlled and fast. Very fast. She transitioned from kicks to punches to what looked like grappling moves against an imaginary opponent, and Crathnor realized with growing horror that he recognized several of the techniques. She had used them on him. This was her warm-up routine. The door to the gym slid open and Crathnor realized too late that he had been standing directly in front of it. Velk emerged, looking unusually exhausted, and nearly walked into him. "Commander," Velk wheezed. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same question," Crathnor said, noting his second's elevated breathing and slightly trembling legs. "I attempted to join the humans in their workout," Velk admitted. "I lasted 12 minutes before my ancestors started calling me home." 12 minutes. It was the longest 12 minutes of my life, sir. The humans had noticed them now. Jan walked over, barely glistening with what humans apparently called sweat. She was drinking that same water container, looking like she could go another 3 hours without breaking a sweat. Well, breaking more of a sweat. "Commander Crathnor," she said with a small smile, "Velk mentioned you might stop by. Come to watch the show." "I was passing by," Crathnor said, which fooled absolutely nobody. "Want to join us? We are just doing a light session today." Crathnor looked past her at Torres, who was now lifting with one arm what Crathnor usually needed 2 arms to manage. "That is light?" "Well, light for us," Jen admitted. "We can scale it down if you want to give it a try." Every instinct Crathnor had screamed at him to decline to preserve what microscopic amount of dignity he had left. But there was something in Jen's expression, not mockery, not challenge, just an offer, a genuine offer. "I suppose," he said slowly, "I could observe, for educational purposes." "Sure," Jen said, and that smile got a little wider. "Educational." She led him into the gym, where the other humans paused their various activities to offer greetings. They were polite, friendly even, and not one of them mentioned the incident from 3 days ago, which somehow made it worse, because Crathnor knew they all knew, and they were being kind about it. Humans being kind was somehow more unsettling than humans being threatening. "So," Jen said, guiding him to a section with adjustable equipment, "want to try some basic exercises? Nothing crazy, just enough to get a feel for how we train. And if I fail miserably?" "Then you fail miserably," Jen said with a shrug. "Everyone does at first." Torres threw up his first week of basic training. Chen pulled a muscle trying to keep up with the running requirements. "Rodriguez, tell him what happened during your first sparring session." Rodriguez, still doing those impossible pull-ups, grinned. "Got my nose broken in 3 places, cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. We all start somewhere," Jen continued. "The difference is not where you start, it is whether you keep going." Crathnor looked at the equipment, then at the humans, then back at the equipment. His pride, battered but apparently not dead, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was an opportunity, not to prove he was better, because that ship had sailed, crashed and sunk to the bottom of the metaphorical ocean, but to understand, to learn, to maybe stop being the idiot who thought he knew everything. "All right," he said. "Show me." Jen's smile turned into a full grin. "Fair warning, this is going to suck. I assumed as much. Want to make it interesting? If you can complete the light circuit, I will give you that rematch you have been thinking about. Friendly sparring. No stakes. Just practice." Crathnor's 4 eyes widened slightly. How did you know I was thinking about a rematch? Commander, Jen said, patting his shoulder with one hand. Everyone thinks about a rematch. It is human nature. She paused. Well, probably everyone nature. Pride is pretty universal. A rematch, Kruthnor repeated, testing the word. Not as an enemy. As a what? Training partner? If you can hang with us for one session, Jen confirmed. Deal? Kruthnor extended his primary right arm. Jen shook it, her grip firm and confident. Deal, he said, and meant it. 2 hours later, Kruthnor was fairly certain he was dying, but in a good way, possibly. Week 3 of training with the humans. And Kruthnor had discovered muscles he did not know existed, mostly because they were all screaming at him simultaneously. Keep your center lower, Jen instructed, circling him on the training mat. You are still fighting like you are in low gravity. Plant your feet. Use Earth's gravity as an anchor, not an obstacle. Kruthnor adjusted his stance, all 4 arms positioned in a defensive configuration that Jen had spent the last week drilling into him. They were sparring now. Controlled contact. And for the first time since their initial disaster, he managed to block one of her strikes. Better, Jen said, sounding genuinely pleased. See? You are getting it. I blocked one attack, Kruthnor panted. 1. Which is 1 more than last week. Progress is progress, Commander. They reset, and this time when Jen came at him, Kruthnor remembered to breathe, to stay low, to move with purpose instead of panic. He did not win, but he did not get immediately destroyed either, which by his current standards qualified as a victory. Afterwards they sat against the gym wall, both breathing heavily. Well, Kruthnor was breathing heavily. Jen looked like she had taken a brisk walk. Can I ask you something? Kruthnor said after his lungs remembered how to function. Sure. Why are humans so good at this? At fighting, at surviving, at enduring. Your people have only been in space for 70 years. Most species take centuries to develop warrior traditions. You had them before you left your planet. Jen took a long drink from her water container before answering. You want the short version or the long version? I have time, and honestly, I need the rest. Jen smiled at that. All right. So, Earth. Beautiful planet, right? Oceans, forests, mountains, all that good stuff. Also, absolutely trying to murder us every single day for about 300,000 years. 300,000. Give or take. We evolved during ice ages, survived megafauna that thought we looked delicious, dealt with diseases that should have wiped us out, and lived through climate shifts that killed off most other species. We did not have claws or armor, or venom, or really any natural weapons. We had endurance, intelligence, and spite. Kruthnor laughed despite himself. Spite? So much spite. Humans are persistence hunters. You know what that means. It means when we wanted to eat something, we did not ambush it or overpower it. We just followed it. For hours. Sometimes days. We walked after it. Until it literally collapsed from exhaustion. Then we ate it. That is horrifying. That is Tuesday, Jen corrected. We climbed to the top of the food chain by being too stubborn to die, and then because apparently we got bored, we started fighting each other. Wars, battles, conflicts over land, resources, ideologies, religion, you name it. Thousands of years of humans perfecting the art of hurting other humans. She pulled up something on her data pad showing him images. Battlefields, armies, warriors from different eras of human history. We studied war like it was science, she continued. Every civilization developed fighting styles. The Greeks had their phalanxes, the Romans their legions, the Mongols their cavalry tactics, the Japanese their samurai, the Europeans their knights. We wrote entire books on strategy. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, Musashi. Fighting was not just survival for us, it was culture. Kruthnor stared at the images. Humans in armor, humans with weapons, humans facing down enemies with nothing but determination and very poor life expectancy. And then we got to space, Jen said, and everyone assumed that because we were new, we were weak. But we brought all of that with us. 300,000 years of survival instinct, packed into diplomatic vessels and security protocols. You are terrifying, Kruthnor said quietly. We are adaptable, Jen corrected gently. There is a difference. Put us in any environment, give us any challenge, and we will figure out how to survive it. Not because we are better than other species, but because quitting is not really in our vocabulary. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, other station residents went about their business, probably not realizing they were walking past a Vaxilian warrior having his entire worldview reconstructed. "I owe you an apology," Krothnor said finally. "For what? For underestimating your people? For arrogance? For assuming that strength only looks one way?" Jen bumped her shoulder against his arm. "Apology accepted. And for what it is worth, you are not the first and you will not be the last. Most species go through this. The important thing is what you do after you learn the lesson. What do you suggest? Stop measuring strength by size or tradition. Start measuring it by results. Your people are warriors. So are mine. Different methods. Same goal. Maybe there is something we can learn from each other." Krothnor considered this. His people, the proud Vaxilians with their centuries of martial tradition, learning from humans who had been in space for barely a lifetime. A month ago, the idea would have been insulting. Now, it seemed like the smartest thing anyone had suggested in years. "I would like that," he said. "Good." Jen stood, offering him a hand up. "Because tomorrow we are doing the full circuit. No modifications. I am going to die. Probably. But you will die learning." 6 weeks later, Krothnor stood at the same observation deck where this entire humbling experience had begun. Velk approached, looking concerned. "Commander, Ambassador Chen is asking about the joint training program you proposed. The Council wants details." "Tell them it is approved," Krothnor said, watching a human shuttle dock with the same casual precision he had come to associate with their species. "Vaxilian warriors will train with human security forces. Cultural exchange, mutual improvement, all that diplomatic language they love. Sir, some of the other commanders are skeptical." "Let them be skeptical." Krothnor turned to his second, and there was something different in his expression now. Not arrogance. Confidence. The kind that came from genuine understanding. "Tell them I said this. Humans are not our enemies. They are not our inferiors. They are survivors from a death world who clawed their way to the stars through pure determination. And if we are smart, we will learn from them before someone else does." "That is quite the endorsement, sir." "It is earned," Krothnor said. He flexed all four arms, feeling the new strength there, the techniques he had learned, the perspective he had gained. "Besides, Velk, someone needs to warn the rest of the galaxy." "Warn them about what?" Krothnor smiled, and it was genuine. "That if you challenge a human to single combat, you should definitely collie someone afterwards, because you are going to need medical attention, an ego repair, and possibly a complete reevaluation of your life choices." "Speaking from experience, Commander." "Extensive, painful, humbling experience," Krothnor confirmed. "The best kind." Below them, the human delegation began to disembark. Krothnor spotted Jen among them, already scanning the area with that casual vigilance that he now recognized as constant situational awareness. She looked up, saw him watching, and offered a small wave. He waved back with all four arms. Some lessons he had learned were worth the embarrassment, and some species, regardless of size or history or how absolutely terrifying their home planet was, were worth respecting. The humans had taught him that, along with 17 new ways to hit the floor, but that was beside the point.